Hello, my name is Mercury, and welcome to this brand new episode of Media Buffet. Today, I'm alone and I'll be discussing the second season of The Last of Us. Now, before we begin, I have to mention something completely unrelated to The Last of Us, or really anything even close. It is like 10 fucking million degrees separated from The Last of Us, and that is Dragon Ball. Okay. So last night on the 24th, like it was 25th today. Hopefully you're listening just on the 25th of January. But on the 24th, last night, they announced a few things for Dragon Ball. And it was, I think, what would be considered season 6 of Dragon Ball Super. And a remake of Dragon Ball Super that's releasing this year. Like its own like little other like remake series of like the first arc or the first saga of Dragon Ball Super. Very cool. I will be reviewing Dragon Ball Super Beerus. I know that I don't know when will be when that eventually comes out, and hopefully by then I'm already caught up. I know that by the time I'm caught up with all the Media Fay episodes about Dragon Ball, I'll be on like season 5, like Saga 5 or some shit. Like right now, that's where we're at. I'm pretty sure it's like Saga 5. So we'll see. Like Saga 5 or 6, maybe in like a movie or two. I'm not sure. But yeah, that'll be where we are. But I don't know. But I think it's releasing in October. Is when I think it's coming out. So we'll see by then. I think we're gonna be well into into Dragon Ball Z by then. So yeah. Yeah, I know that I'll be jumping kind of into Super, not really watching, probably like very incompletely watching, very incomplete state of me watching Dragon Ball Z. So I'll be jumping into that. The good thing is, this is the start of Super. Hopefully, I won't be too lost. But yeah, I will be reviewing that. I just want to get out of the way since I didn't want to wait until the next Dragon Ball episode to talk about it. Since then, it'd be like, oh, yeah, there's some stuff I want to talk about in that episode, but I just want to mention this since this is like brand new and all that. So yeah, like this just came out. I want to talk about it. And as for like the Galactic Patrol saga, I'm gonna be sorry that that's not, if I don't get to Super by then, like the finishing Dragon Ball, which is probably not going to happen. I don't see a world where I even get close to getting the Super in time for Galactic Patrol. That is like we're probably going to be done with Dragon Ball. Like no, I don't know if we're done with Dragon Ball. We're probably well into maybe even like GT by the end of this year. I'm guessing Dragon Ball Super Season 2. What? 6 anime series. Is it a new series? Is it not a new season? Am I stupid? Hold on. List of episodes. Yeah, I'm just mentioning it here. Um, Universe Survival. Head Patrol. Let's see. I'm not. I don't feel like I'm stupid. Hold on. Okay, there's Beerus, and then there's another one, anime television series. Oh, okay, so it's two different ones. I'm guessing. So there's just gonna be Super Galactic Patrol, so it's not a season. Okay, then I might actually do it, even though it's like gonna be like a sequel series, a sequel series to a sequel series. Let's see. Um, Okay. First 26 episodes readapt Battle of Gods, Mercury films with later explained. Okay. So there's anime manga's prisoner, their sequel to original Super anime. Okay, so they're not. It's not a different season. It is legit just a different show. Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, we might be able to get there in time for that. But yeah, I just want to mention that since that just came out, and I didn't want to wait until the next Dragon Ball episode to really talk about it. So yeah, anyways, Last of Us, right? I really enjoyed the last season of The Last of Us. I haven't played the games, either of them, or I guess there's the part one remake of the first game. But I haven't played any of the Last of Us games. I do have the one, I have The Last of Us remastered on PS Plus. I think thanks to the collectors, like the PS Plus collection that they did a while back, took that like away in like 2021, 2022, around there, or like 2023. I don't remember. It was around that time. But yeah, I do have that, and I be playing it. I'm pretty sure I will at some point. I'm not sure when that will happen, but I will be playing through The Last of Us, The Last of Us Remastered. Excuse me. But yeah, um, aside from that, like there's not really much to say about my experience with the games since I haven't had any experience with the games, especially The Last of Us Part Two. I have not played The Last of Us Part Two. I was there when it really. I mean, obviously, I'm fucking alive, right? But like, and we started the podcast the year, like legit, like the January after. I mean, not really, like, the year after it launched, not even a year into it launching. Like, but yeah, we made that podcast. Like we made this podcast. It's like we have a history with this fucking game technically. Since when it came, like our first episode was going to be the on the Game Awards, on the 2020 Game Awards. And the Game Awards thing's a whole different thing. We're gonna cover the 2025 one, but but just so you know, it's gonna take a really long time for that episode to get here. Just saying, not a really long time, but like even if we do catch up, it's gonna take a few more weeks after that for it to come out. But anyways, and I'm gonna have to rewatch the Game Awards as well. It's gonna be a whole thing. Yeah. So, anyways, hopefully it's gonna be better. But I don't know. Like, what? No. Hopefully we get like through it. Hopefully we get the 2026 one on time, more on time than we did 2025, and 2024 was like a month afterwards. I'm pretty sure, like when we covered the 2024 Game Awards, it was like a month after. Not sure when exactly, but yeah, we did cover them. This one's gonna be pretty late. This one's gonna be pretty late. I'm telling you guys, it's gonna be quite late. Especially if we continue at the pace. We've gotten quite far. To all things considered, we've gotten quite far this month. Especially much more than like other months where we're just like, oh, like here's like 3 episodes and then we're gone for like 2 months. No, here was like we actually, did something. We actually fucking contributed something. But anyways, we'll see when we catch up, because I hope we catch up. I really do. But you never know. You really never know when things happen and when things don't go as planned. But yeah. So I was saying, I was there. History of this game. we were when the game won Game of the Year. We were so like distraught. We were not distraught, but, like just kind of like I don't think we didn't think it deserved it. Obviously, we were younger in 2020. We didn't have tastes, but it's like that the whole thing about the game, people arguing about it, and it's like, yeah, we made the complaint like the gameplay might have been good, but like the story wasn't matter, and people didn't like the story, and back then, you can't really stop a bunch of teenagers from bandwagoning, so we did that. I've matured, and I realized that I can't really give my opinion on a game without having to how I have it without playing it. So I will get around to playing The Last of Us Part 2 at some point. Don't know when that'll happen, but it will. And that's really about it. I'm probably gonna give my thoughts on Last of Us Part 2 probably at some point in the future, and then capping it off probably with the Part 1 remake, or like the first game remake. I do know about the Last of Us season, so yeah, I did watch Last of Us season 2. Obviously, I'm fucking talking about it. What am I saying? I'm trying to like figure out thoughts to fucking say, figure out things to say. I can't even formulate thoughts. What the fuck? Anyways, it's 11 a.m. I woke up at 5. I've been meaning to fucking record this episode for like the last 6 hours that I've been alive, and I just haven't. So it sucked. It's really sucked. Awake, not alive. What? Awake. Anyways. Okay, so Last of Us Part 2 was people didn't like it, whatever. I was there. I don't have any opinions on it right now. Any concrete opinions on it since I haven't fucking played the game. We're at that point, but from what I know quite a bit of what happens in Last of Us Part 2. Also Season 2, what the fuck? And I think that, and I thought, like, looking at it, like, okay, this could work better as a season of the show. Like, they could expand upon it, maybe figure out its own flaws, because for all intents and purposes, The Last of Us is mostly just an interactive movie. So maybe as a movie, maybe as a show with a lot more time and like effort put into it, we could get a pretty solid version of the story. Did that happen? We'll see. If you follow me on Serialized, which I know nobody of you do because I have 0 followers, you're already kind of spoiled. I wrote my longest review ever for my thoughts on The Last of Us. That is my longest review I've written at any point in time was for The Last of Us Season 2, because I had quite a bit of problems with it. So you already kind of know what my thoughts are going to be if you've seen that, if you've even just seen that review. If you haven't, then, well, they're going to be here, and you're going to get to hear me talk about this season of television, of this show, for however long this episode is, probably an hour at this point, because I have quite a bit of complaints. I have quite a bit of complaints, but I have a lot of praises for this season. I have a lot of praises. So yeah. Anyways, let's just get into Last of Us Season 2. Starting off, we always start off with the visuals and action. Okay, like to put it simply, the show looks really, really good. The show is really, really good looking. Like, the sets, the colors, and especially the CGI is really good for, I mean, obviously, HBO has always kind of been on top when it comes to, like, special effects in shows, as we've seen with, like, Game of Thrones. The problem with that kind of thing is right now is that, like, having, I guess, movie quality CGI in shows in like series and stuff isn't exactly a rarity nowadays. As shows have taken longer and longer to come out, they have had a lot more time to really focus on their CGI. We don't have the whole thing that we had last time where it was a yearly season, and every season had terrible CGI. That's one of the pluses of like having more space throughout like seasons now. Like they have more time to really make it look good instead of just kind of throwing it out there to meet the quota of having one season a year. I've I've never understood that. Oh, 20 episodes. Well, the problem with 20 episodes is that it's too much. It's just too much. I feel like 20 episodes a season of like a live action show for 40 minutes each episode is way too much. And I don't think a story needs to ever go that long, if that makes sense. Because at some point you're just gonna have filler, and at most points you're gonna have filler. So shortening it down, keeping it to its bare essentials, is I feel like the better play. I'm not saying that there doesn't need to be downtime. Like downtime should not be a thing. I'm just saying like a lot of stuff is unnecessary and doesn't really do much. It's just kind of forgotten by next episode. So I don't know why they would bother doing that other than meeting the quota. That's just kind of a problem with old TV. I vastly prefer the new like I guess norm of having things be like mini series and such. Because a lot of shows with a lot more episodes, I feel like it's such a slog to get through. Yeah, that's just me. I know it's my unpopular opinion, and people really like to 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 watch series fucking 20 weeks in a row, like every episode. And, like I get that. I'm in the minority, but I don't know. Like I don't. I don't like watching 20 episodes. I don't like seeing a series and have 20 episodes of each season. It's just too much for me. Now you can like it, sure. Me, that's not it. No. And I've made this like comparison before. Like like shows now, like they don't give enough time for their stories to really flourish, and I get that, and I do understand that. And there's a big complaint of mine as well. I do think it's better to have shorter seasons because you get to focus on what is necessary, focus on the characters, focus on everything. But you also have to give enough time. Like a 6 episode miniseries can work. It has worked. But the problem is you don't give enough time for your characters to actually develop. You keep making them be 30 minutes every episode. You're not going to have enough time. That is a 3 hour show if you're making a 6 episode series with 30 minutes every episode. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. So yeah, I don't even know why I want this tirade. Oh yeah, CGI. But yeah, like as a result of all that, of like not having like shorter seasons, so like less, I guess not less budget spent, but like more, but like budget allocated to what's necessary and all that, and more time. We've gotten better CGI, and it's very, and it's basically the industry standard at this point. Not really. There are parts in shows where it just looks terrible. Like CGI just looks terrible. It doesn't look as good, and obviously that's because we don't live in a just world where CG artists are giving the time they need for good CGI anymore. So yeah. But yeah, that is the big thing. People are not given enough funds to like really reason to work on those things with effort because they are not. It is turning one thing after another. it has problems, but it has the potential to be better, and this is a pretty good sign of that. Like, there's a lot of stuff here, and I mean the CGI, like the practical stuff, is also really interesting. It's also really cool looking. Like, there is so much effort put into the practical stuff here that it's really impressive. Like how much effort how much time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears they put into this fucking into the setting and into like all like the makeup that goes, all the prosthetics that go into like the zombies and stuff. I know they're not zombies; they're the infected. But I always say to people that just kind of correct things like, "Oh, they're infected; they're not zombies." Like, shut the fuck up! They're the same things. They are the same things. There are no fucking differences between infected and zombies. Just call them zombies. No one cares. I think even in the show they call them a zombie. Like, come on. I know like our zombies are the undead and they came back to life and whatever the fuck. Well, these are infected, but like by all intents and purposes, these are also undead because they are dead, being reanimated. Like, by all intents and purposes, infected and zombies, like traditional zombies, came back from the dead and whatever the fuck, are the same thing. They are the same thing. It's just a more scientific way of it happening. That's fine, but you don't have to pretend that they're not zombies. Yeah, the zombies look really cool in this show. Does it have its moments of not the best CGI? Sure, but it's so little how much CGI they use even then, because a lot of the show is focused on the humans and things and others, like other characters. So it never really had to focus on that. So like the big like action sequence where it has a bunch of CGI would be the Jackson fight, where it has like the big I think it's called a bloater. Yeah, the big bloater, and that guy looked good for the most part. So yeah, no, like the CGI is good, the effects are cool, the practical effects here that they had are cool as well. So yeah, no, like there's a lot of effort put into the visuals here, and they're really cool. And like I completely neglected the action, so I went on a fucking tirade. Yeah, the action is, I mean, there's not much for me to say about the action here. I mean, it's fine. It's like the big cool one um is the Jackson fight, where like we see like Jackson put up its defenses, like the barrels of, I guess it's gas or something, like something flammable that explode, or explosive, like explosive barrels that, like, and all like the guns and all that, and all like the defenses that they had, and what they went, how many phases of like defense they had, how many lines of defense they had, and all that. Like that was all cool to see. But that's like the like not like it. That's like it for like action in the show. Any really like any like impressive action. The rest is kind of shooting at people, not really shooting at like zombies and such. It's just very shoot at people and whatever, which is fine for what the story is. This is a lot more story focused than like at least like game wise. It's a lot more story focused. You're not gonna be too focused on the action. That's not really what The Last of Us is about. It is, like I said, mainly made to be a story that you experience. And at least for Last of Us, the gameplay comes second, which is a benefit or a detriment depending on who you ask. But that's besides the point. We're talking about a show, which is you're not playing it. It's not interactive. You're watching it. But yeah, no, it is very just kind of normal action after the whole Jackson thing, like just kind of normal action show movie type stuff. Not a lot of like I mean, not a lot of like memorable things, but like again, like the action isn't the point of The Last of Us, so it's not gonna have too memorable action, which I'm not terribly like mad about or like upset about. Like that's fine. Like I understand that's not really what The Last of Us is about in any way. So I can temper my expectations when it comes to that, at least. But I feel like the CG, like all the visuals they had for the show, were really well done, and the action, while it's not the focus, it is sometimes, especially during the Jackson fight, done really creatively, and it helps show like how people have been living in this apocalypse, especially since now we cut 5 years after the Last of Us season one, and it would be the game. Yeah, we cut to there. We cut to there. We see how like Jackson has been. This like city that they brought up, and it's a city that they made obviously post apocalypse. We see how it brought itself up, and also kind of how no like how rudimentary its defenses are. It uses logs for walls instead of like anything like metal, which makes sense since I don't think metal is gonna be very easy to come by in in this era with no like metal production going on or anything like that. So logs make sense. It's like, and it's so cool. Like, you can tell just by how Jackson looks, like why they built it like, the way they did, and like what tools what materials they had at their disposal. I think it's done really well. And also something I gotta praise about like the visuals, and something that's very like normal, like, not normal, but like that'd be very obvious, is the intro. The intro for Last of Us isn't anything special. It has no like it's just the acoustic guitar track, and that's really it. But something I gotta say, I gotta you say like, oh, I kind of like that is when after Joel dies. Fucking spoilers, I guess. But number one, this season's almost a year old, so no excuse there not to have watched it by now, especially since it's January. So it released in April, so like like 9 months, right? It would be like 9 months. Yeah, like 9 months of it being out. And yeah, and also the game that it's based on has been out for 6 years, almost 6 years. It's been out for like five. I think it released in May of 2020. I think that's when The Last of Us Part Two released. And also, I got something unrelated, but I gotta mention, The Last of Us, like, I was like, games in general don't really release. Oh, release in June. I was thinking it released like in the same summer as what do you call it? It because it released like the same summer as Ghost of Tsushima. So like yeah, it was like a month before Ghost of Tsushima, so that makes sense. I was like, I think it's in May around there. I know it's really close to Ghost of Tsushima, which is another PlayStation exclusive game. And I'm surprised that they even like released so close together to Last of Us. I'm pretty sure it was in July of 2020. Yeah, July 2020. They were very different games, but it's still like a Sony exclusive. It was really weird to see that just there. looking at some other stuff I'm not gonna mention right now. That's not good. Anyways, um, there's not much more to say about anything really. Let's just move on to the action. Not the action. What the fuck am I talking? I'm fucking brain damaged, man. I'm so cooked. I'm so unbelievably fucking cooked right now. I'm not high or fucking drunk or anything. I am just brain damaged. That's what I am. I'm fucking brain damaged. But yeah, the characters. Okay, I can see why my mind decided to blank out on this one. The characters of this show. You know what? I did put her first, but I'm gonna leave her for last because I want to talk about the others first. And there are some other stuff I want to talk about there. So I'm gonna leave the character that we all want to talk about for last because I want to talk about the other characters first. For simple pacing of the episode, and I know we never really give a fuck about the production value of the podcast, which is sad because looking at what has happened, if all simply unrelated, but we're gonna sure why not? It's me, Faye. We all we do is derail the conversation to have other conversations in the middle of our conversation. That's fine. I recently saw something saying like people like missing Anchor, and you may know, you may not know. Maybe if you were just here from YouTube, or if you're just like the first episode of ours you're seeing, we've been doing this for 5 years, and when we first started out, it was me, Pee Wee, some other guys. Pee Wee was a co-founder who since left, kind of same year as it started, and then I took over, and I'm kind of like the only one doing these things aside from like rap comedy, sometimes popping in at some points. I guess it's just my podcast now. I kind of inherited the whole thing, to be completely honest. I wish it never came to this, but I understand the others wanting to leave, or at least not appearing as often. But that's beside the point. Um. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that this whole thing was made. We're trying to get to. Not even the point. It's not a point. This is not relevant to anything I'm ever talking about. I don't even know where I segued into this, but like, oh yeah, 2020, something like that. Anyways, I was gonna say was that this podcast was initially made as like it was us in like the pandemic, really bored and whatever, and I mentioned that, and something that I saw like earlier was like I think a few months ago, weeks ago, whatever, is that a lot of people did that. Like I don't think, I think it was days like days ago. Like a lot of people did that, and a lot of people like during that time made a lot of podcasts. They didn't have enough. They didn't have like podcast equipment. They did eventually get them if the podcast was successful enough. They did get them. They get some equipment, but some of us weren't so not lucky, but like some of us weren't that savvy with technology or really put much thought into it. Like us, I have been recording on my phone for every single one of my videos, my episodes. Sorry, it has been on my phone mic. It has sounded good, at least. Obviously, it doesn't have any like protection against like any background noise or whatever, but it works. It works for me. And yeah, so You have to fill up on water. Yeah, so it works. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people like don't do that anymore. I was gonna say it's like Anchor. I remember Anchor. A lot of people miss Anchor, and I'm one of those people. Like, oh, what was I gonna say? Like, if you're from around that era, you might have known that I used Anchor to record, edit, and do everything on for the podcast as a whole. It was even like put on Anchor. Like you could go on Anchor, search up Media Fan, and it was there. Currently, Anchor is no longer a thing. It has been rebranded as Spotify for Creators, and it is a significantly worse platform. I only use it for distribution. That is the only reason I use it, and the reason why I use it for distribution is because it's owned by Spotify. It's completely free, and I don't have to, you know, do anything. I don't have to. I know there's probably better options for me to go in there and actually, you know, distribute episodes. But I mean, I haven't had any problems with Anchor. Well, I'm calling Anchor Spotify Creators. My only problem is like what happened with it in the end. 4,614 streams, Jesus. 33 Spotify followers. That's a good number of people. Just looking at it here. Also, I don't know why, but the app doesn't really work out that well. It doesn't tell me like play, like who, like which people have played what episode. It's kind of funny. It always just puts in 0. Let's just see. I have 500 episodes. That's insane. 14 on some of them. That's cool. Yeah, no, this is not like the best platform, but whatever. It streams directly to Spotify, so that's good. One view on Joker Vlog, dude. That's Jesus. That's not good. Anyways, yeah. Spotify creators, or like Spotify for podcasters. I'm not sure when it was rebranded from Anchor, like it lost all of the. I'm pretty sure it lost all of the all the like the editing stuff. I'm like pretty sure. We were there when that change happened. We were there when like we were pretty much there for all like the big changes. But, you know, like a lot of those creators like don't. I I don't even know where the I've really forgotten where this even stemmed from. To be honest, I just wanted to mention that like yeah, completely unrelated things. Like we're kind of the a dying breed here of like amateur podcasters from the from the pandemic era who have stuck around for so long. Another thing I saw, I think it was from Fact Fiend like a year ago or something, was that a lot of podcasts don't even reach episode 20, and people stop doing them and all that, and then some gain very little traction, but they're up to like episode 400 and some like 400, 500. Which hey, look, this is episode 464, so I guess I fall into the other category. But yeah. Anyways, not me being unappreciative. I think I've said enough that I'm very appreciative of my of the viewership that the podcast has gotten, especially on YouTube. Ever since not since we moved, but definitely since we expanded to being on YouTube, we have gotten a lot more viewership on our episodes. For some reason, specifically the Incredible Hulk episode, I'm not sure what will happen whenever we do like an Iron Man 2 or we continue with the podcast in general. Or like what will happen if like what would it call it? I don't know what will happen if you continue with the MCU as a whole, because Incredible Hulk has 808 views. I am not sure where they're coming from, but they're there. The Flash has 304. There are some really big views here, in all honesty, which is I'm very grateful for. But yeah, I was talking about characters. That's the thing. I was talking about going into the characters, going to part two, talking about 2020 release and all that bullshit. Yeah, I want to talk about that since it's been quite a bit. I think I mentioned it was 6 years ago, whatever the fuck. But yeah, I think I mentioned earlier in the episode that I had a history of this game. But yeah, side tangent aside, I guess. Just want to mention that I feel like I found that really interesting. That the podcast that I'm in. I'm not sure if there's anyone else out there. If there's anyone out there, any podcast out there from the era of everyone making a podcast on Anchor and all that bullshit, let me know. I'd love to fucking talk about that. I don't know if I made you a favor, but definitely as a guest. Could be cool. Yeah, I know. That is there. I found the old Media Fair channel on YouTube 5 years ago. Go fuck me in the ass. It's hard. It's hard for me to quantify just how genuinely long it's been, and it doesn't feel like that. 5 years, just have a decade of doing this bullshit. Also, there's another guy called that was doing what's it? There was another guy that was doing Media Buffet. Again, another podcast doing Media Buffet. I think I mentioned it at some point in the past. That was years ago. That was fucking years ago. That I haven't seen it for anything from them, which is sad. I really like those guys. I'm really sad that we haven't gotten that I've seen anything from them, because I really like them, and I wanted to I reached out to them for to do a collab. But yeah, anyways. Again, side tennis. I'm not cutting this bullshit. I mean, I don't even know what it was. I just want to mention that I found that interesting. Characters. Oh yeah, I wanted to leave Ellie for last. Whoops, I'm gonna leave Ellie for last, I guess. Yeah. I put character instead of characters. Go fuck me, dude. Okay. Let's just get into it. No more preambles. Just get right into it. Starting with Joel. Joel dies. I mentioned it earlier. Joel fucking dies. Joel gets his skull bashed in by Abby, and all that. That happens in the games. Don't worry. It's not if you were mad about that, then it happens in the games. A lot of people were mad about that 5 years ago. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, some shit like that. Okay, no, it's been very very long. I don't like to think about that. 2020 was 6 years ago. That's insane. Anyways, I already went on a fucking extra crisis going over all that stuff with the podcast and things. Just found it interesting. Wanted to mention that Media Fate might be the last of a dying breed of podcasts from from 6 years ago that have kept going for so long. And hey, you know what? I don't mind. We've gotten better viewership after we did after I guess everyone would have quit by now. We've gotten better viewership afterwards, which is I find great. I find great that we found that sort of audience, and I'm very grateful for it. But I feel like I spent too much time on that instead of actually talking about the characters and such. Joel again. He dies. He dies very early on. He dies episode 2. There's not a lot to say about him. He is a little bit calmer. He is calmer than he was in The Last of Us, like season 1, the first season. And that is mainly because he's supposed to be like I think 60 or something like that. He's not. Take a shot every time I say some shit like that. But like he's supposed to be 60. He's not supposed to be like very active. So I get why he's a lot calmer in this season. I've read somewhere that apparently like Joel's character is not at all like the same as the game counterpart. Which I mean, I'll see whenever I get around to playing through the first game, whatever that might be. I'll definitely get around to trying to play it. But yeah, we'll see. But Joel, I feel like it's good here. I like that Joel is never treated as being like this good guy. He's definitely always treated to be like very morally gray, mostly going on like morally black. Because of like how violent actions usually are and all that. So yeah, and I think if you went on my if you went on my serialized, I know nobody does because nobody goes on my fucking serialized. You would know that I really liked episode 6. Fuck no, not episode 7. Fuck that. I liked episode 6 a lot. It reminded me a lot of season 1, which is, I still think is a masterpiece. I feel like it stands on its own as a series. Even if you don't know anything about the games, I feel like it does stand up on its own. It's done really well. But I know it has, I know it has its like differences from the game. But I feel like it's very minor. It's minor enough where you don't really care, and it doesn't really detract. I feel like here it does, and Joel, I don't know. I'm mentioning just right now. Joel is not is the exception. I feel like he's done pretty well, things considered in this season. Again, I like how he cares a lot more. He definitely shows a lot more like care for Ellie in this season than he does in the last season. Especially since like in season 1 he was trying to like repress those feelings, and here he's a lot more open about it. And I really do like that. And I like that we don't see him being a perfect father. And another thing is that we see like his childhood as well, with like his father and Tommy and all that. And I mean, like it's one scene, but we do see it. And also, I was really taken aback when I saw that his father was Tony Dalton. That was I was like, huh, that was something. I didn't even know he was in this show until watching that. But yeah, aside from that, Joel doesn't really get much development. I mean, we do get like the whole like therapist scene at the beginning, and the whole thing with what's his name again? Like the guy who he shot in episode 6. I forgot his name. Completely forgot his name. Yeah, I like that he's not shown to be like totally like a good guy. But yeah, like, and that's a very big example. And then contrasts well with what we see with this show. This season, in particular, this season. But yeah, there's not much more to say about Joel other than he gets bashed in his head, and just a lot of unsolved stuff that goes on with Joel. But I feel like that's unintentionally because his death is unexpected. So yeah, next up is Dina. Dina is interesting. I think she's the best written character here. I like this the stuff with her being like with relationship with Ellie. I think it's handled really well, and her being pregnant like gives us like attachment to her character and all that, and how tactical she is, how she helps out, and all that. I feel like Dina has done really well, and I do like her Isabella Merced's acting here. Like I feel like Dina is the best character here. Joel is, I guess, a close second by default since just like his character a lot. But Dina is, I think, number one here. I feel like she does the most. She has a very interesting character with a lot of depth. With like the whole like her family and her mother. I think sister being like killed and like her like backstory is just generally her backstory. I think is interesting. But yeah, and how like her again how her relationship with Ellie grows throughout the season, and how she confesses her feelings and all that. Like I do like that, and I do think Dina is like the best written character in this show. My only problem is that it should not have come to the expense of Ellie, but we'll get into that when we get into that. But yeah, I think that's all I really gotta say about Dina. There's not much more to say. I think I've spoken enough about like all their bullshit in this episode. So let's get into like the good stuff, right? Next up is Jesse. Um, I wish I could say more. To my knowledge, Jesse is meant to be a like one of Ellie's friends in the game, and it just doesn't seem like it in the show. It feels like Jesse just kind of doesn't like he respects Ellie, but he sees Ellie more as an acquaintance or like a neighbor than an actual like friend. Like just sees her as being like, oh yeah, we live in the same community. Not really as a friend. And that's really unfortunate because I feel like the show tries to make you feel like they're friends, but it doesn't work out. It just makes both seem like really snarky towards each other, which I feel like it happens to a lot of other characters here and there. So yeah, no, I don't know. Like Jesse just kind of like meh. She's just a very meh character since I feel like the show tries again. I feel like the show tries to make you feel like tries to make you like care about this character when in reality it just like Ellie just kind of treats him like shit. Dina doesn't treat him like shit, but like for being two exes, they're not even like they don't interact much. especially like because Jesse dies at the end. Spoiler alert: Jesse dies at the end. That's at the end. Fucking wow! It's been fucking 9 months since the season came out, and it's been 6 years, almost 6 years since the game came out. Whoa! Spoilers for a shit that we knew about since 6 fucking years ago. But whatever. You should probably know that immediately has spoilers by now, especially since you're watching an over an hour long episode on one thing. Whoop fucking pee, I guess. Fuck me. Anyways, I've heard no one complain, but just pulling it out there because I know if if this gains traction for some reason, if the algorithm decides, you know what, this is the episode that should go on the algorithm, replace Incredible Hulk. Um, I know when people are like, oh, but you didn't put spoilers. I don't give a fuck. If you see an episode on a thing more than like an hour long, like even like even more than like 20 minutes, you should probably know. Yeah, there's probably spoilers in here. I think it's just common knowledge. I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna talk about something for an hour and it being not spoiler, like and being spoiler free. Not gonna happen. Anyways, Jesse, right, doesn't really do much. Let's move on to Abby. Okay, I have problems of show Abby. I don't know much about game Abby. Like I know the bare bones. Obviously, she's the daughter of one of the scientists, of one like the scientists in the part of Fireflies, and I I know she's meant to be like a really like a imposing character. It just doesn't feel that way in the show. In the game, she's very muscular, very big, very like I would say very intimidating. Like you feel like she's a leader. In here, she just looks like a white woman. Just a random ass white woman. I don't like. I don't know. I don't. I just don't like feel threatened by her or anything. She just looks like a normal white woman. I remember there being a lot of things about, oh, it's not realistic to have like that level of being buff in like the apocalypse and whatever the fuck. Like, I think you're misunderstanding the world of The Last of Us. The Last of Us is part of a world where for 20 years they've been in here. They probably have found out ways of being able to get around the apocalypse and things like proteins and such. I don't think expire that drastically, especially since you can take it from nature. Like you can become pretty jacked from just eating like natural stuff. So I don't think it's that unrealistic for The Last of Us. If it was fucking like I don't know, like a fresh out of like a fresh invasion, then maybe not. But like it's been 20 years, or in I think both continuities of The Last of Us, like I think, and by then people and like we see Jackson, it's like with lights and all that. Like a person being buff, lifting weights that probably been found after years, or maybe probably been made, probably like made. I know there's probably like there's not a big steelwork factory, but there's probably people who specialize in steel. People are still alive from beyond before the era of excuse me, before the era of like of the apocalypse. So like I feel like it's not that bad. It's not like that realistic. But we have Abby here, and Abby's just kind of like he's fucking just a random ass white woman. I feel like even if the actress just jacked herself up a little bit, like buffed herself up a little bit, I feel like it could have been a lot more like Game Abby. Because Game Abby at least has presence. Like here, you're just kind of like, what the fuck? You're not threatening. I don't know. That's just me. I don't feel like Abby's really threatening. And Abby herself as a character, I have some issues with her in the show that mostly stem from the fact that this show is split into two. This like game, the game they're adapting is split into two. Um, Abby is weird. Abby's hella weird because Abby we're meant to like care about her character and all that. And maybe we were supposed to hate her. I'm not sure, but we know like they put the flashback for the hospital like right in the right in the first episode around there, so you know what's happening. They show her off, and it's like we don't see Abby until the last episode where she just kind of shows up. It's like, come on. And her backstory, I'm sorry if it makes sense to you, but it feels like the most. I don't know if this is even like a thing they did in these, but it feels like a Disney directed video like sequel, direct to DVD sequel, like plot thread. Like, oh, this thing from like this one part of this one scene. You remember this guy that you killed that didn't have a name or anything, and he was just kind of there. That's my dad, and now I'm gonna hunt you down and kill you. It's like, come on, like it feels like like it doesn't feel like a terrible ass pull since I can definitely see it working, but it just gives that same feeling of like, haha, like we don't have a villain, so we're gonna just make it the daughter of this one random guy. Okay, didn't get a name or anything. Maybe they don't, I'm not sure, but it definitely just feels like that. And then I'm sorry if I'm sorry if you think differently or if you think it's smart. I mean, I think it works. I feel like it really does work. I feel like it's a really cool plot point to explore, like like the cycle of revenge and all that. And obviously, we'll get into that later. But yeah, I just feel like Abby doesn't really have a presence here. It's just kind of like, like she's just kind of there and doesn't even do much. Okay, so we're gonna talk about some other characters, and I have a really big problem with the characters of this show, and it does bring it down a lot since a lot of the show is about the characters. I've praised some things. I've at least for a while now, for a bit. There are some really glaring issues, and this is gonna be one of them. I feel like they introduce a lot of characters in this show that don't do much. And I know I know everyone's gonna tell me like, oh, but it's technically like a halfway adaptation of Last of Us Part 2. It's gonna be explored more in season 3. It's like, okay, fine, but like, why? Why? It feels like when I think of season, something I didn't mention in the like serialized review, because I was running out of. I know not that I was running out of space, but I was like, is this already like 9,000 words long? Do I really want to make it another like make it 1,000? Is that um is that I get it. It's meant to be two different seasons that's experienced separately, like the Squid Game and whatever, like the Squid Game and whatever the fuck. I sound like a boomer. Like it's meant to be experienced like two different parts, and that's fine. Which when I think of which it's just like when I think of a season, I feel like a season can definitely set up multiple. like seasons afterwards and all that. Like I feel like that's fine, but the season itself should have a beginning, middle, and conclusion. Like it should at least have that. It shouldn't be just completely open ended. Again, cliffhangers. They all exist. They're all fine. It's just that he doesn't feel like a cliffhanger here. It just kind of feels like, well, the story ended. The story's done. Now we gotta wait to see. It's like, come on, like where this season ended, it was just kind of weird. But that's beside the point. What I was trying to say is the characters introduced here is kind of like they don't have no role. Like Isaac, what's his name? Jeffrey Wright's character Isaac. He shows up here, gets introduced, doesn't do anything for the rest of the series. It's like, what the fuck? Like, at least do something important to the plot. He doesn't do anything important to the plot, and the thing is, he's introduced to be someone important to the plot, and he's not yet. But for the season, it feels like a waste of time exploring this character. We could be exploring him in season 3, where maybe he's gonna have a bigger role. But I get that they couldn't. They wanted to adapt the first half or like whatever how much we have of the game right now. So yeah, it's just kind of weird that they introduce so many characters. Like, yeah, that's not the only thing with them. And Abby kind of throws in her is part of here too. It's kind of like, let's not do anything with this character. Just yeah, it's just kind of weird. And let's bring it down. Like, it's kind of like, okay, like, what are we doing? Why are we introducing all these characters if we're not gonna have payoff for them right now? Like, at least like some sort of story, like significance right now. Like, okay, that's weird. Anyways, we're going into the big one here, the one that I feel like everyone has talked about for this show, and that's Ellie. Ellie is such a gigantic fucking mess in this show. It is genuinely insane. Okay, Ellie, where do I even begin with this character? Let's go over what I said in my serialized review first. I'll pull it up so I know. Actually, I wrote it. I know what I'm fucking talking about. In there, I said that I didn't think that Bella Ramsey should have been recast. I think that they could have pulled it off really well. They in the show itself, I feel like the moments where Ellie is serious and tries to kill them are acted really well. And I felt that us having not too much of a time disparity between season 1 and season 2 could have worked well as us seeing Ellie as the same sort of teenager that we had before, but now seeing her in a new light and not wanting us to believe our own eyes seeing this character in the way that she's presented in the show. I feel like having Bella Ramsey still be Ellie could have worked really well, because it could have played with our minds a little bit, seeing the same character we saw in season 1, but now being a lot more violent and being very vengeful, and not being and kind of looking the same. So we still see that that's the person we saw in season 1, like visually, but she's completely different now. And that would have worked if they adapted the one from the games. Now, okay. The game one is a problem too, but it's a bit less of a problem here. It's the fact that at the very end she spares Abby after killing fucking every one of the people who works for her with absolutely no remorse. Like I can see that and say, yeah, that's kind of bad. But when we get to this show, but it doesn't feel like that. Like, at least in the game, from what I've seen and heard, it seems like Ellie is in this zone, in this vengeful state of mind where she is going to kill Abby, and she's going to kill anyone who ever worked for her, and you see it. Are you supposed to agree with it? No, but you do see it. and you do play it. And that I can accept. I can accept a narrative where you say the revenge is bad while actively showing revenge. You don't have to. You can have different ways of telling things. But what they do with Ellie is really weird of her not killing Abby. Apparently, in early testing, they were going to have the option for you to kill Abby. I'm pretty sure. I read that somewhere. But then they realized that a lot of playtesters just kind of killed Abby. And that's the outcome that they didn't want. So they changed it so you can't choose and you can only spare Abby. And that's really weird of a change. I would have liked to have seen that. But to but if that's true, I feel like it would have only worked kind of like a really weird comparison, but there's a quest in Cyberpunk where you can kind of tell one of the NPCs, one of the quest giver, like, hey, give this up. You're it's not going to bring you any closure. And if you convince her that that her killing this person is right, then she will kill you. You have a final option of dialogue where you can tell her like, hey, don't do this, but she will ignore it because you've already convinced her of this narrative. That could have worked for this game because it brings nuance. Like at some point you are kind of locked out of it. You're locked into this narrative where you are either vengeful and you're gonna kill everybody, or you'll give people the chance to change or the chance to redeem themselves. That could have worked for Last of Us Part 2. I don't know how they adapted into it. I don't know how they adapted into a season of television, but it could have worked. And also to better just explain the ending. Like if you were a more not what's the opposite of vengeful? Like forgiving Ellie. If you were much more forgiving Ellie and knowing of what Joel did in the past, I think that could have worked really well. Without seeing what happened, what Joel did, that could have worked well if you had like empathy and whatever. But at some point, like depending how you play, you would either be locked into like sparing Abby. If you play a certain way, and if you play another way, you were locked into like killing Abby. And if you played a sort of mix, I don't know how a mix would work. Maybe exploring the characters, like the actual people you're trying to kill, and exploring their character and what they did, and if they even deserve mercy or not. That could have also worked, and it would also be cool to see through the Abby's perspective of the story. But that's not what happens in the game. But I feel like that could have been a really cool way to take it, even though I've never played it. But I know where it kind of goes. And that's just my idea. Spitballing ideas just to make the ending of the game work better. Just in a gameplay perspective, not even just a story perspective, a gameplay perspective. This is a purely story perspective that we're going into this with actual television, the television show. And to be honest, I know what they're doing. It's not going to work because the story of The Last of Us Part 2 demands Ellie to be a certain way. But I know what they're doing. They're mad that everyone criticized that part of The Last of Us Part 2 with Ellie sparing Abby at the very end after going on a rampage killing people. You know what? It's fine to look at a story and say, you know what, we're going to change a certain aspect of it so it flows better. That's fine. What they're doing here is so unbelievably weird. They're trying to make Ellie less of a vengeful person, less of a vengeful like character, and less focused on the whole revenge is bad thing. And just kind of her being the same way as she was in The Last of Us season 1. This sort of immature person with the mind of a teenager and the humor of a teenager as well. Like, They're trying to make it so you feel like it's the same Ellie as last time, and I feel like when after Joel's death, it feels like the same Ellie as it was before. It doesn't feel like Ellie is genuinely like fucking like mad at Abby and everyone who are associated with her. She is just kind of like, yeah, we're gonna kill this. We're gonna kill this bitch because I feel like it. It's like I don't know. Like it just doesn't feel like it doesn't sell me that this Ellie really wants to kill Abby, since she spends most of the season joking around and not really focusing on the mission. It's just really weird. I just find it really weird that they even decided to go in this direction with for Ellie, and I do get why. They're trying, like I said, they're trying to make her less vengeful. So when she eventually spares Abby in season 3 or season 4, whenever we fucking like, I get to the ending of The Last of Us Part 2, it makes more sense. But I feel like it came at the expense of the entirety of the narrative, because it doesn't feel like Ellie is vengeful. You can write revenge is bad while showing the revenge occur. Right? Like what I feel like could have been a really good message, or a really good way to portray the message of revenge is bad, is to make it so the only option, the only way you can finish the game is to kill Abby. Because it shows that there's a cycle of revenge going on, and how it can consume people, and we've seen through Ellie that it consumed her, and it changes to to a different person for the worse. She leaves people behind that were her closest friends. I'll get into that later in the show, like in the show sense. But like she leaves behind people who were her closest friends, or even closer, like pretty much family, in pursuit of Abby. And I think she loses like a few fingers at the end. Like this like physically scars her for life. Like it would have been like a really good, a really like well made ending if it just killed Abby, because like then it would show like it would make you feel horrible for what you did, because you understand why Abby did it, and you do, but you have to go through this as Ellie. It would have been I think a better narrative if it just showed it through that lens of how revenge could be all consuming, and how a cycle of revenge can occur, where now Ellie is at the can face grave consequences like Joel did if they ever want to do a part 3. But that's not going to happen in the story now. I feel like that's the only way you can make the story work, is to have some balls. It's this story, like I said in my serialized review, this story cannot have a happy ending. It can like this story I think has to be when you finish it you feel empty, you feel devastated. It can't have a happy ending, and I feel like specifically Neil Druckmann, since he's working on both, like he is a writer on both here and The Last of Us, like a TV show. I think he's trying desperately to make it that way, and it just doesn't work. I'm sorry, man. It just doesn't work. Um yeah. And in the show, like I get it. That's what we're trying to go for, but it just won't work. I know it won't work. I can see the fucking future. I think I was gonna put this in like the section where I talk about the future, but I'm really worried for season 3. And if they're going to season 4, which I don't see why season 4 is even necessary. I don't see why season 3 was unnecessary. I'll get into that later. But yeah, I said about that for a million times, but let's get into something I said that we get into later. Ellie's relationship with people here. I'm not sure how it is in the game, but to my, it's probably not as weirdly written as it is here. Ellie doesn't have a good relationship with anybody in this show aside from Dina. And I feel like in the game, probably I've read that people say that Jesse and Ellie are friends, are really good friends. But in the show, it just kind of feels like Ellie is not friendly with Jesse at all and doesn't really like him. And when Jesse says that, oh, you'd have my back, you'd always come running to me. It's like I don't feel like she would do that. She doesn't feel like the type of character to do that because she hates you so much, and she doesn't like you that much. And a lot of interactions don't feel like she's vengeful and really wants like going back to that. Like it doesn't feel like Ellie is vengeful towards anybody. It just feels like Jess and wants to go after Abby and all that, and that's her focus. It feels like Ellie's just an asshole to people. It doesn't feel like she's like you don't feel like you're seeing somebody like, oh, like this Ellie wants to kill Abby. It's just kind of like she's an asshole. What the fuck? Especially since in the show, again, they're trying to make her a better person, and she's gonna try to save Scar, but Jesse doesn't let her. And when we get to like the point where they're arguing, when they're arguing, he's like, oh, Jesse wants to go save Tommy, since that's definitely Tommy, like in the distance. But then Ellie's like, no, like, why we gotta go find Abby. I gotta go find Abby. It's like, okay. And when they start arguing about, but you didn't save the Scars, like, well, you're not gonna save Tommy either. It sounds like Ellie's really hypocritical. I don't know, just like Ellie being written to be a better person in this narrative didn't work, and it doesn't sell me on the narrative at all. So yeah, that's my 15-minute rant on fucking Ellie, and let's get into the plot. Talk about narratives. Okay. I feel like part 2 doesn't need more than 2. Them doing it in 3 seasons is already a stretch. Like them extending part 2 into season 2 and season 3, I feel like it's already a stretch. But I saw like the showrunner say that it could require a 4th season. I promise you, The Last of Us Part 2 is not that long. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. Let's see. How long to beat? I know it's not really reliable, but it'll tell me it'll tell me a narrative. 20 to 30 hours. Main story 24 hours. Okay. What's the first game? The Last of Us. Uh, 15. Gotcha. 15 hours. Yikes. Okay, so it's like on average, I guess, like 9 hours more, like story than it is like the first game. That is quite a bit of fucking shit to have there. And even then, I feel like we didn't need this. I feel like people would be a lot happier if it was just one big season covering The Last of Us Part 2 and not stretching it to 2 seasons or 3 seasons even, maybe. Because I feel like the narrative of The Last of Us Part 2, it's kind of weirdly, it feels really weird. Like, we spent a lot of time in Seattle, sure, like, that's a big part of the game. I'm pretty sure since we're here for 3 days that we spent so many episodes in Seattle. But to me, it just feels like we kind of meander in Seattle until like anything happens, until Jesse gets here. Something I forgot to mention about in the action, and was kind of mentioned here. I like the smart zombies, even though we don't really see much of them. They don't do much. That's the thing I kind of saw about like the Last of Us Part Two, is that people like the game itself doesn't really focus on the zombies anymore. It's just the characters. And that's fine. It's always about that, but it was at least like the story of Ellie was about how she was completely like immune and how they help fight a zombie, like how they can make a cure and release like something to prevent people from getting bit and turning into it at all. And so eventually they would all zombies would die out and society can go back into to be normal. But in part two, it just doesn't like I just don't see a lot about the zombies. It's just kind of like, yeah, they're there because they have to be the enemies. It's like, okay. And here I do like the smart zombies, but again, we don't see much of them any like in the show. And that's the thing. Something I said about our characters that we don't this season introduces characters and we don't learn anything about them at all at any point during the show, aside from like, a few scenes here and there. And the pacing in the show is really weird. Like we get to Seattle again, we kind of meander around. We spend the first two episodes like in Jackson, obviously, and then it doesn't feel like it's ending. Like when the show gets to episode 7, it's like okay, it doesn't feel like the show is ending, and then it cuts really abruptly. I don't know, like, and that was like the shot I saw of like the meme of Ellie like screaming no 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 no, and then and then she just getting shot in like a perfectly cut scream moment. But yeah, um, I don't know. I feel like the pacing was kind of really weirdly. It's just a poor adaptation of the entire like thing. At least from what I've seen, it's not a good adaptation. I can tell it's not a good adaptation because again, it just kind of it cuts in places it cut like a certain part. I'm not sure if we're even halfway through the game. It's a warn at season three. I hope if we're not even halfway through, I would hope season three is at least like longer than season two. Since season two is only 7 episodes. What the fuck? It's 7 episodes. So yeah, yeah. I hope it's longer. I hope it's longer. Since I don't I don't want to deal with something terrible like this. I can't handle I can't handle more terrible pacing in fucking shows that I'm watching. Jesus Christ. But yeah, I hope that it gets better in season three. Um, but yeah, no, like it's all over the place. Shit just kind of has a lot of loose threads. I think I mentioned this before, but I said that people would probably tell me like it's part one of season two, and that's like it's like season two, season three are one are like two parts of the same season. And I feel like by that point you shouldn't call it season two and season three. You should just call it season two part one, season two part two. You shouldn't fucking call it two different seasons if they're gonna continue the same narrative. Like I understand like overarching narratives and all that, but at least every season should have a beginning, middle, and end, not just cut right in the middle of something. Like how this season does. And cliffhangers obviously are there, but they like those cliffhanger movies and shows at least have a beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't fucking just end abruptly. It. I don't know, but yeah. Aside from like the characters and visuals, this show just kind of did everything really poorly, and it wasn't a terrible show to sit through, but it was such a downgrade in quality from season one that is very noticeable. Yeah, let's talk about the future. Even though I've mentioned season three quite a bit in this section. Um, like I said, I'm worried. I'm very worried for season three. I know apparently it's coming out next year, which makes sense, I guess. That's coming out next year. I'm very worried because I don't see a world where it has a satisfying ending. Um, if season three is entirely focusing on Abby's narrative, that's gonna be a bit weird. It's gonna be like us cutting. It's gonna be one big like fucking pace issue. But whatever. It's gonna have one big pace issue, and I just don't know. Like if we when we get to season four, it's gonna be like the rest of the game or whatever the fuck. I don't. I again, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Like we should have had it be one season and then evenly spreading across the characters. Like again, maybe I was right about the show being better as like the game being better as a show, since we could have had both Ellie's narrative and Abby's narrative being shown at the same time. I don't know if that like has any issues with it plot wise, but I feel like that could have really worked and could have one maybe shortened the pacing, so like help the pacing so things are happening on both sides, helped us understand Abby's point of view a lot easier, a lot quicker, and it would have cut the game down significantly since you have to obviously play through Abby's part. You can't just play through it at the same time. You have to play through it. What the fuck? You have to play through it. But yeah, like I feel like that could have worked really well for a show, but that's not what happened here. So if that is the case, I feel like season three is gonna feel a lot like catching up to what's been happening with Abby rather than like an actual story progression, and that's gonna feel really weird. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that season three is the genuine conclusion of the story, since I feel like a show having 3 seasons covering one game spanning from like 2025 to like 2029 at the earliest is way too long of a stretch to be spending on one game. I feel like I said in my review, I feel like spreading into multiple seasons even is sucking the game's dick way too much, way more than it already has been. So yeah, I hope the season 3 is the conclusion, since if they go in like the direction of having Abby's POV be like the entirety season 3, I feel like it's gonna have like people are gonna have a lot of pacing issues, a lot of issues with the pacing in this show post season 1. But yeah, that's my big talk about like the future of The Last of Us. I'm very cautious about it, and I hope that it gets better since season 1 was so good. But sadly, I have to give it a D tier. It's a very high D tier, but I have to give the season a D tier. If you were if you go on my serialized, you'll see it's a 4 out of 10. I started giving them out of 10 ratings, and 4 out of 10 is below average. It's not bad. It has a lot more good than bad, but the bad really outshines here. Yeah, it's a 4 out of 10. It's not the best. But yeah, I think that's it. What did you guys think about The Last of Us Season 2? Leave in the comments below. If you want to give us, if you want to tip the name of our content, I don't even know what the fuck the order is anymore. If you want to tip the name of our content, you can subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Spotify. If you want to give us your feedback, you can like the video or dislike it, whichever you prefer, or rate us on Spotify, like or dislike on YouTube. And If you want to follow us on any socials, including mine, the podcast as a whole, like the DA Entertainment as a whole, or anyone who's ever joining an episode with me, they're all in the description, including all my review sites where you can check out reviews early for anything I might cover on the podcast or that is related to the podcast. So yeah, that's about it. See ya.